When it comes to video games, there are two questions get thrown around very frequently. Those are video games art, and are video games a waste of time? Now, as for the first question, I really don't think it's worth talking about because anyone who thinks that video games aren't art are completely out of their mind. So if you take drawing, music production, authorship, videography, and voice acting, all of those as individual works would be considered forms of art. But then when you put them together, they somehow cease to be art. That doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, video games are art. That is a dumb question to ask. We can talk about whether it's a good form of art, whether it's better than other forms of art, whether it's worth actually dedicating your time towards to actually perfect your art, or even if people involved in the AAA space can really be creative with how commercialized that space has become, but saying that it's not art just doesn't make any sense. Now, as for the second question, this is considerably more complex, and I have sympathies for people on both sides of the fence. Now, I say both sides of the fence because I take this ultra mega brain super centrist position on the video game question. You might have thought that because I have a video game channel that I just have to be in support of video games, but that's not necessarily always the case. So, what I have to say is, before you do anything like playing a game, but this applies to literally any activity, ask yourself one question. So whether this is doing something like going to the gym and working out, hanging out with your friends, drawing, learning a new language, or even paying your bills, is this activity going to be a valuable use of your time? Now, the reason why I say valuable here instead of something like entertaining or fun, I guess you could use something like fulfilling as well. The reason why I don't use those other words is because a lot of the things that you need to do in your life are not going to be fun. So for example, I don't think that going for a 10-kilometer run is a fun activity. Is it good for you? Absolutely. You probably should go for a run, but I don't think that running is fun. Paying my electricity bill, I don't think that doing that is fun, but if I don't do that, then I won't have a working fridge. Or grinding in an MMO, I don't think that's fun. I think it is a horrendously boring experience, but if I wanted to go and play the new content that came out with the new DLC, I would have to go and grind to the new max level. Now, you might say that grinding in an MMO and playing the new DLC isn't something you need to do like the two other options, but you're looking at this situation from being outside of the situation. What if I said that your entire social circle was wrapped around this game and playing this game was how you actually spent all your time with your friends? I don't think I'm in any position to tell you that that is how you shouldn't live your life. If that's how you want to do it, feel free to do so. So the point I'm getting at here is that value is something you have to define for yourself. You can't let someone else go and define what valuable means for you. So here's a bit of an example then with skills that people generally think are valuable. So let's say that we have programming, for example. So a lot of people will say that programming is a very useful skill to have, and if you said to someone that, I don't know, I'm going to spend a couple of hours learning how to program today, and I'm going to keep doing that over and over until I actually get good at programming. Now, most people would say that's probably a good use of your time, but let's say that your day job is as a carpenter, and you're really happy as a carpenter, you have no plans to ever become a programmer or do any programming, then programming becomes a massive waste of your time, and you probably shouldn't spend a second actually doing it. And the exact same applies in reverse as well. So a programmer who has no interest in ever doing any carpentry, going and learning how to do carpentry would be a big waste of their time. Now, obviously, there are skills that are more generally applicable. So things like, say, learning how to cook, learning how to fix your car, these are things that everyone should know how to do. But you have to actually rate the things that are important in your life and decide, okay, what is the best use of my time? But the other important thing about value is the way you define it changes very heavily over time. So back when I was in uni, I really didn't play that many games. I'd play a couple here and there in the holidays, but it wasn't like after classes I would go home and play some games. When I came home, I'd usually be, doing some assignments, or maybe I'd go over to a friend's house to visit, or maybe I would just go drive somewhere and just, I don't know, go to the beach or something. I didn't really want to spend that much time playing games because at the time I felt like games weren't really that valuable of a use of my time. And that might come from the fact that when I was a kid, I played like 5 years of RuneScape, it might have been longer, like 7 years. I played a lot of RuneScape as a kid, but kids don't really have any responsibilities. So once I had some responsibilities, I felt like those were more valuable to spend my time on. But that's not to say that I didn't value relaxation by myself. It's just that the sort of games I was into at the time, so FPS and action RPGs, just aren't the sort of games you relax to play because they sort of like hype you up while you're playing them. It's nothing like playing Stardew Valley and just going fishing for 3 hours or anything like that. So if I wanted something a bit relaxing, that would usually just be watching a bit of anime, which I guess you could say is just as wasteful as playing video games, but I valued that relaxation time because I was spending a lot of time on my assignments. There's the reason why I have a near perfect GPA. I spent way too much time on my assignments, so I really did value that time where I just wasn't thinking about assignments, that I could just go back and lay back and say, okay, I'm just going to watch like an hour or two of anime and not think about anything else. But since I left uni, I've sort of changed the way that I value that time playing games. So you probably noticed that I have a third channel linked down below if you don't know about it, called Brodie Robertson Plays, and that is where I stream some games. Now, the thing about this channel is this is the only time I play games. If I'm not on stream, I am not playing any games whatsoever. So that is the time that I've dedicated to just playing games. And the reason why I think this is valuable is because I've sort of turned it into an extension of the business I'm sort of building. So I have my main channel where I do Linux stuff. I have the podcast where I do podcasty stuff, and now I have a third branch, and this third branch is for playing games. And I feel like right now, building up this media empire, as some might call it, is a really valuable thing to do. But if I was working, say, a 40-hour-a-week job that I loved, maybe I wouldn't think that, and maybe I'd think that playing games then would be a big waste of my time, and I might as well just spend that time improving the skill so I can get better at that job. Now, here's a skill that I've been working on recently, which is very debatable whether it's actually a useful skill. So, I'm one of these very boring people that only knows one language. So right now, I'm in the process of learning a second one, and that is Japanese. Now, depending on the situation you're in, you could say that learning Japanese is a really useful skill to have, or is a massive waste of my time, and doing literally anything else would be a better use of it. Because I don't plan to live in Japan, I don't plan to use Japanese heavily in my career. I guess I might do some streams that are like study streams for Japanese, but that's basically the extent we'll see from that. Maybe one day I'll visit Japan, but that's basically it. But I still think that it's a valuable skill to learn because I think Japanese is a beautiful language, and I'm interested in learning how learning a new language actually changes how you interpret concepts, especially when the structure of the language is so very different to the way that English is structured, and there are words for things where in English you would have an entire sentence to describe it. And due to the very limited sound pool relative to English, I feel like Japanese wordplay is really, really interesting to talk about. So for me, I find this time to be really valuable, but for you, maybe learning Mandarin would make more sense, or learning German, or maybe just learning no second language whatsoever because you're never actually going to use it. It very much depends on how you define value in this situation. Now, I do have some sympathies for the argument that modern AAA games and mobile games are designed to be addictive. They're designed to encourage gambling, they're designed to encourage you to keep spending extra money on the game by not including all the content in the base game. They're designed to encourage you to repeatedly visit the game by making things actually locked to real-world time events, but I don't think that you should shift the responsibility for your bad life choices onto someone else. Yes, these games very well may be designed to be addictive, but I genuinely don't care if that's the case. In the end, you are the only one responsible for actually changing your habits. If you think that the time you're playing games is a big waste of your time, look at that habit, look at what you're doing, and look at how you can actually go to break that habit and potentially replace it with something else that is a better use of your time. Because I could say that video games are the biggest waste of your time, but that doesn't actually matter because you're the only one who can actually change whether you're actually spending that time playing a game or not. If you think that playing Fortnite or something is ruining all your relationships, look at that and work out why that's the case, work out why you're playing it so much, and work out what you can actually do to stop doing that. So basically, to sum up the entire video, it depends. Thank you guys for watching. Before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. So a special thank you to Chris, Joachim, Donald, Michael, Andre, Nathan, David, Monster, Will, Chico Bento, Joseph, Mitchell, Peter D, Tony Tushar, and all of my $2 supporters. If you'd like to go support my work, them links down below to my Patreon, subscribes, LibrePay, all of that sort of stuff. I've got my podcast, Tech Over Tea, available basically anywhere, and then this channel is available on Odyssey, Library, and BitChute if you want to watch on a platform that isn't YouTube. So I think that's going to be pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.